Welcome back to Lucky Number 7, the 7th episode of the 22 and 22 series, where we rank the 22 teams returning to Orlando for the playoff bubble. At 16, we have probably a little bit of a shocker. The current 8th seed in the West, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this was a very interesting decision, ranking some of these remaining teams, but in terms of talent, we believe they are 16th. And there's a couple of reasons why. They are a middle-of-the-pack around 500 team, but they've been that all year, and they've always proven to be very risky sort of team. They win some pretty crazy games, but they lose some pretty easy games also. It's a very young team, very unproven team, a very talented team, yes, but they don't have the talent necessary. They have players like Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Clark, and Dillon Brooks, and because they're in a small market location in Tennessee, they don't get all the hype that they rightly deserve, and also they don't get as many cases of the virus, so none have been reported thus far, and they seem to be one of the only healthy teams going into the bubble, and that's going to be really important, especially as you see teams like the Pelicans, who have at least 3 players who've tested positive so far. So some important games which they'll be having is against the Blazers and the Pelicans, and these are probably going to determine whether or not they are going to have to play a play-in series. The requisite amount is 4 games, but if they beat both the Blazers and the Pelicans, and for the rest of the games they go around the same record, then there'll be a 4.5 game difference, and they won't have to play, and they'll automatically lock up the 8th seed. However, more likely than not, they'll end up having to play a play-in and have to win at least 1 game out of 2 in order to make the playoffs. My prediction, even though no one's out yet, is they will go 3-5 in the remaining few games. Some of the games which they could easily win are the games against, obviously, the Trailblazers and Pelicans, but also games against teams like the Spurs, possibly even the Jazz, and the Bucks on the last day, because they might be resting their starters before the playoffs begin. So I say that a 3-5 prediction for the Grizzlies is not too far-fetched. This is a very middle-of-the-pack team, but I don't think they're very close to their untapped potential, whereas some of these other teams we have ahead of them are a little bit farther away and can easily have longer, better streaks. So this is the segment where we talk about our rankings. So for the Grizzlies, I actually had the Grizzlies at 15. So I have them a bit higher. I really like this team. They're very deep. They're surprisingly deep team, with players like you have Ja, Jaren Jackson, Jonas Valanciunas. I suppose you could call them Triple J instead of Jaren Jackson himself. We'll get to that later. Brandon Clark, Dillon Brooks, and pieces off the bench like DeAnthony Melton and Justice Winslow, who they recently acquired for Andre Iguodala. So I think it's a really good foundation of a team. I don't know if it's enough to get them into the playoff or if they are a playoff lock, but I think they definitely have the talent. I'm a little bit higher than the rest of the group, but higher on the Grizzlies, but I think that 3-5 is a decent prediction for what they'll go in the bubble.
All right, yeah, I have them 1 lower at the 16th seed. And I think what most people expect for the Grizzlies to do is to go into a play-in tournament with the 8th seed against either the Blazers or the Pelicans, or maybe the Kings. However, I think that they would lose in either of the first 2 scenarios. And this is because although they have some decent young talent, especially Ja Morant, they would lose to the Blazers just because of the experience that they have in high-intensity scenarios, making the conference finals last year. And they would lose to the Pelicans simply just based off the raw talent that the Pelicans have, especially with Zion, Brandon Ingram, even Drew Holiday and Lonzo Ball. So that's why I have them below both the Pelicans and the Blazers at 16.
As for my rankings of the Grizzlies, I had them at 16 like Andy. I also do agree that the Grizzlies are definitely going to make the play-in tournament, since there's no way that the teams that are 3.5 games behind the Grizzlies are going to catch up to them. So the Grizzlies are going to play in the play-in tournament, but in the situations of a play-in tournament, I think that the Grizzlies are going to have a very tough time against the Pelicans and the Blazers, given that the Pelicans have the return of Zion, and Zion has recently bulked up a ton and gained lots of muscle. So I think he's going to be a very serious threat, and actually even more serious threat than before when he was averaging 24 points per game. And with the Blazers as well, I think Damian Lillard, he's going to make it Dame time. Damian Lillard's just really good. And the Blazers also have a ton of playoff experience, like Andy said. I think it's going to be a very difficult road for the Grizzlies to the playoffs, but it's definitely probable since the Grizzlies just have to win one game in the play-in tournament against the 9th seed team.
I don't know, but hearing Zion bulked up is just scary. But that's it. That's our 16th ranked team, the Grizzlies. Comment below who you think tomorrow will be the 15th ranked team in our power rankings in the 22 and 22 series. And leave a like if you enjoyed. This has been us, the Bench Warmers, and we're signing off. See ya.